Both our previous two speakers have mentioned the live export trade, and obviously that's been a very significant trade in relation to particularly the Middle Eastern markets. So our next speaker, Sam Brown, who's the Chief Executive Officer of LiveCorp, is going to talk to us about the Middle East from the perspective of the live export sector. So please welcome Sam Brown. There he is.
Thank you very much, Mick, it's always a great opportunity to come and welcome the invite to talk at this forum. Let's see how we're going here. Okay. Look, to the speakers that have just been before me, Rob and Susanna, I think they've covered a lot of the statistics and the detail, so I sort of suspected that and I wasn't going to take them on it. So I'm going to stay a little bit more into the types of challenges that we face in market access and generally our day-to-day experiences, what we find ourselves doing in LiveCorp to try and help sustain and grow the trade. But there is something I will stay firmly with them on, and that's the theme that both Rob and Susanna have spoken about, and that's that there's this great potential in the Middle East, and with those that potential also creates great challenge, and that's where I would like to talk to you a bit more about today. So I'm going to cover just firstly the role of LiveCorp and how we work with MLA. I'll cover our trends, which aren't that great at the moment because we're in a state of steadiness and being in a pace of decline. I'll talk through that. I want to talk about our market access and health protocols because this is really important. It really is the gateway to the trade, and we certainly spend a lot of our time working on that in LiveCorp. And then, market access activities and RD&E, these are the real key areas for us to be tuned into because it's how we know what we need to be doing in the market on the ground and getting to establish those relationships and continuing to underpin. So I won't dwell on this and because Rob's explained the MLA model, and I'm just saying here to the right of your screen there's the LiveCorp model. We like MLA report to our peak council, which is the Australian Livestock Exporters Council. We co-invest with MLA into the live export program, and we're working across those four areas of animal welfare, industry capability and livestock performance, and stakeholder support, community support and market access. So our trends into the region, I thought this is a better way to start because I just wanted to highlight the region that we're working in and actually show where the livestock are coming from within the region that are supplying our key markets. And you can see that the trade in livestock is quite extensive across the region. So this doesn't include Australia, of course, but you can see the huge number of regions that are involved in this live export trade. And equally so, I don't have the analysis, but you could be rest assured that they're also doing children frozen into those regions. So, when I've been in Jordan, I've met cattle from Brazil. When I've been in Kuwait, I've met sheep from Kyrgyzstan. In Jordan, I also met sheep from Romania. So I've met a lot of different livestock from a lot of parts of the region, more probably livestock than I've actually met people. But it goes to show you, like particularly, I've met a lot of Somalian and Sudanese goats and sheep, and they are very active in the region. We're not just the one supplier, and I think that's a really important perspective to keep in mind here. So of our total live trade, you can see by numbers, and this is picked up mostly by the sheep, Middle East and North Africa, it's a huge percentage, around 62% is going up to the Middle East, and into Asia, around 35%. And into the other, when I categorise Europe, is Russia, that's predominantly there. But this is just our total exports in volume terms and where they're going by region. And of course that would be a very different pie chart when it comes to value, because the value of the cattle going up to Southeast Asia is quite considerable. So these are the markets that we're working with when I talk about Middle East and North Africa and in Europe. So we talk about Jordan, Israel, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait and Russia. Through the presentation I'll talk a little bit more about where some market opportunities like Iran and the like in Egypt, which are also there, that we're also working with. So what does it look like on the sheep story? The sheep story since 2010, it's been in decline, but we're seeing it steady, and we're forecasting a slight return. We're not forecasting it to return in any fast fashion at all, but certainly we think that there is reason to see it return. We know that the processing capability in markets like Kuwait is much greater than what it is. But look, the things that really are driving the challenges for us in supply to the region are common things that everyone's faced with, and that's supply, price, but more importantly for us, it's shipping. So shipping is really important, and it's important to make sure that the work that the vessels are doing is economical. So we need to make sure that a lot of the region would prefer small and regular consignments of livestock. Being able to develop a shipping route for a large vessel is a considerable challenge, and be able to make sure that you would be able to fill a consignment up, which is potentially 75,000 head of sheep, and be able to do deliveries to 2 or 3 markets. So their preference is not to hold livestock for extended periods of time, and they basically need to have that delivery capability, and that's been a big challenge for the industry in the sheep side of things. So where they're going, as I mentioned before, Kuwait is been the largest market that we've had in the region, and Qatar and UAE is over there in the other. They're the other markets that are being supplied, and Jordan is relatively consistent. Look, I've put up there the global trade as well, so you can see put in perspective of Australia's efforts in its live export industry. But I think we all know it. Saudi Arabia is a significant opportunity, and that's a market that the live exporters are very keen to see re-established, and that could be a real shift for volume. But there are other markets there, Iran, that are also present significant opportunities. So on the cattle side of things, it's always remained relatively flat. Sheep, the live export in sheep is the real business to the Middle East, but you're seeing the 150,000 head market, and the key markets where they're going to is within, as you can see, the MENA there is quite low by comparison to the growth markets, Indonesia and Vietnam, but markets like Jordan, Israel, and other markets generally take lower volumes, smaller numbers of cattle, but not in any way significant like what you see in Indonesia and Vietnam. So market access and health protocols. This is where it comes down to business for us, and this is a key area of work, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this. What we need to do, and where we find ourselves working quite hard with the Australian government, is around this area of negotiation of protocols. Protocols are a key piece of documentation for export of livestock. So the second part of that is the ESCAS, which is the Export Supply Chain Assurance system, which is the second part. So the first thing you need is a viable health protocol, and the second part, if you're exporting feeder and slaughter livestock, is an ESCAS approved supply chain. So we have a significant role in working with the government in developing and constantly reviewing and refining these protocols, because that's where the competitiveness of the industry really does lie. our market access efforts are really supported through the relationships that we're able to build and maintain in the market. It's through those relationships we can get early warning if issues are arising, or if our understanding is the environment's right to make an improvement to a health protocol, which may allow us to remove a test for a disease that we've been free of for many, many years. So how do we do this? We've worked hard as a organisation to corral our industry, and we coordinate this industry protocol committee. What the committee is doing is to work on our new market opportunities and prioritise our renegotiation of markets. We require regular meetings twice a year, and we meet out of session, of course, as needs be, but we have a core group of exporters on there. We work closely with the Australian government, and that process is sitting down and working through all our market opportunities and making sure they align with where the opportunities are, and we come up with a key priority list. So being able to communicate with the government about what your priority list is really, really key. So here is a good example of how we generally look at market access and protocols. We need to be able to make sure that there is a payoff if successful, and then we need to look at the prospect of success. And exporters are really good at being able to talk about the payoffs, and government is able to really contribute when it talks about the prospect of success, because a lot of these countries and the departmental people can really provide you with a lot of insight into what other market access issues are before that particular country, and whether or not they think there's an appetite for them to come and talk to you. Whilst you've got a really important customer who's really keen, you might not have a willingness because of a blockage on another market issue. But there's some examples we can see how we move things around and reprioritise, and that's how you extract the best value with working with a department which is quite commonly under-resourced in the areas that we need them to be in market access. And I think the most important point when we talk about protocols and we think, oh, we've established and signed protocols, it's just the beginning, because they're rarely perfect. And they always need constant refinement, because you get to points where you just say, look, we can accept that, we can tolerate trade, will commercially be viable, we'll just have to provide that vaccination, or we'll do that blood test. It may add another $20 to the animal, but for the sake of trade, let's get going and try to renegotiate. So they're the sorts of things that we find ourselves revisiting with the market. So, but my final point there is, most importantly, and the message we provide to producers and exporters is, regardless of what we think scientifically or otherwise, the importing health protocol is king, and we need to make sure we provide and meet every aspect of it. Otherwise, the trade and the ramifications are quite significant. So, looking at our market access priorities for EMENA, this is where we're working. So Customs Union, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Qatar, Turkey, and a lot of these we already have established health protocols with. But there's a need for us to continue to refine. Say in a market like Turkey, which we haven't been supplying for quite some time, there is a condition on blue tongue. We've got good assurances with the Turkish authorities that we've provided and delivered and met their expectations and built trust with them, that we do have a world-class NAMP system here in Australia, and we know where blue tongue is and all the science behind it. So they're saying, look, we're close to removing that condition. That could be, $25 a head cost saving, as well as the time to yard and handle livestock, of course. But there's always refinements that can be made, so the job's never done. In-market activities and RD&E. So this is at the highest possible level, market access development. I've just covered that. Our technical support with the customers, and the importers to make sure that they're getting the best value for the livestock. It's a real commitment in after-sale services, and that's where, you know, we work closely with MLA across all of these areas. But, you know, in animal welfare, you know, it is what the industry is challenged most with, and that's where significant amounts of our efforts and works, over 74% of our budgets, are going to this area to try and deliver it and provide people with. I mean, this is the backdrop. This is the region, backdrop of the regions. There's huge opportunities, but there's huge amounts of work that needs to be done to continue to get them in the right direction of animal welfare. And our RD&E is a cornerstone of improvement, and that's what we strongly believe in LiveCorp and live by. So the in-market challenges, the relationships need to be strong at all levels, and to ensure confidence in the trade. And you know, that's fundamental to risk management in our MOUs, our memorandums of understandings with Australia and other countries, that are government to government agreements on health certificates and management of livestock when things are coming into question, and ensuring vessels are discharged. ESCAS certainly being a big challenge of negativity and perceptions of our overstepping our regulatory responsibility has been a big challenge over the last 2 years, but I think we're starting to work through it. We actually should be looking to some of the opportunities to say that now we've initiated some significant change. There will be challenges, there will be setbacks along the way, but that ESCAS has brought about wide-sweeping redevelopment and standards within the post-arrival supply chain. So we need to be mindful of the sovereignty issues and the relationship issues from that slide. The common issues, currency depreciation, you know, it's a classic example here, political instability. And when I think of these, the classic example is Russia. We still have very strong inquiry from Russia on feeder steers and breeding cattle. But, you know, we've got currency issues and political issues, but the two countries have been able to work through this because their investments in beef production in Russia are so significant. They're huge. I've been to these facilities. I've been to facilities in Russia where their farming operations, the one that I went to, they're the single biggest John Deere buyer of John Deere equipment outside of America. And they have huge approaches to self-sufficiency and sustainability in beef production. So despite the geopolitical issues and the currency issues, they still want to work and make sure their investments in beef production in Russia are realised. Of course, you know, working in developing countries with different people, different standards and values. You know, Rob was able to show you the different types of classes that are coming down. We certainly, you know, we know that construction class, the working migrants. These are the people that are really you know, dependent on the live trade to have that hot carcass and going through the markets. And that balance between human and animal welfare, it's always just underlying, and it's a sensitivity issue you need to be able to appreciate. But where does R&D sit in this? And I've only got 2 slides on this because I could spend a long time on it, but here's an example of where our R&D investment is. But most importantly, you see that 8% of our investment in R&D is actually in market access. And I think it's really important we continue to do that. There is so much we can learn. We need to know about the global herd, the national, you know, the global flock, where are livestock moving to from, and how we can better position ourselves. And making sure our R&D is delivering, how it can grow and develop. You can see that we've got over 34 projects that are running at the moment. We've got 130 projects that are up on our website that we've done over 10, 15, 20-year period. But it's about how we're using this R&D to actually create the innovations to really make some change, and development of standard operating procedures and the things we've done in hot stuff risk assessments to make sure vessels have undertaken a pre-risk heat stress risk assessment prior to departure, and all that refining and the BRD work. All the work we've been doing in extension in translating all of this material into over 6 different languages. I was in Turkey probably 18 months ago now, we hadn't supplied livestock into Turkey for 12 months at that stage, but was able to provide them with all these different work instructions, standard operating procedures for their abattoirs, all translated into Turkish. And so we aren't supplying you, but we want to see us as a valued supplier and a good friend, that we are always here ready to provide and extend our information, because if it's improving systems in your country, it's improving it for your livestock or foreign country, or livestock from other countries. So, and this is delivering. These are our delivery rates, and this is the value of the animals that are falling out. And it just proves that, you know, our delivery rates and the cost of mortalities, our investment in R&D and services is working hard. We've got more work to do, but you can see that, you know, through the investment of R&D and making better decisions, you can bring the cost of those mortalities down. It's costing the industry far less, and we've made significant savings. So in summary, you know, we are the only country in the world that's investing in animal welfare beyond our borders. I mentioned all the livestock that I'd met. I hadn't met anyone from any of those countries that were there, you know, taking any interest in how their livestock were performing or how they were being handled. And that's it's an important thing, but it's a fine balance. We talk about relationships all day, about, you know, what the opportunities are, but we have to make sure we're not overstepping the mark, and that we understand when a country wants to be left alone and to do their things, but be able to make sure we've got the leave behind materials, we've trained locals, that we can provide assurance that things are working well. We are highly regarded. Our animal health and performance of livestock is second to none. That's clear across the region, but the strong relationships is critical. So we've got to understand our trading partners' perspectives, their objectives, and be respectful of their religion. So this sort of brings it together for us. This is our supply chain, how we sit and talk to our trading partners. This is basically every one of those points there is a checkpoint, whether it be a standard initiated by Australia, the Australian standards of exports, pre-export, all those checkpoints along that pathway. And then post-arrival, that's where you see all the checkpoints that are occurring on the other side. So what we try to do is not confront these people with burdens of regulation. We try to talk about this is a good system, and it will ensure good health and good care and welfare of your livestock, and it's how we're working together, and we want to be a recognised trading partner.